My husband handed our entire savings on his sister's surgery behind my back. I was devastated but fought back with a plan to rebuild our life and set boundaries. I trusted him with everything, our money, our future, our family. And then he gave it all away without even telling me. My name is Kathleen, and I'm 32 years old. I'm a high school math teacher, the kind of person who plans everything: groceries, vacations, even the exact amount we save each month for our daughter's college fund. I'm not perfect, but I'm steady. Reliable. The one who keeps things together. My husband, Adrian, is 34, a construction foreman with a big heart and a stubborn streak. He's the guy who'd give you the shirt off his back, even if it left him freezing. That's what I love about him. It's also what's tearing us apart. This story starts 3 months ago, when I checked our joint savings account and saw it was nearly empty. We had $12,000 in what we called our emergency fund, money for unexpected hospital bills, a broken car, or, God forbid, a job loss. It was our safety net, built over years of small sacrifices. But that day, the balance was $237. My stomach dropped. I thought it was a mistake, maybe a bank error. I called Adrian, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "Kath, I was going to tell you," he said, his voice low, like he was confessing to a kid who caught him stealing cookies. My sister, Luna, needed surgery. It was urgent. I paid for it. Luna, Adrian's younger sister, is 28 and a single mom to a 5-year-old boy, Max. She's sweet but scattered, always chasing dreams that don't pan out, starting a bakery, then a jewelry business, then some online coaching thing. She's been in and out of jobs, and Adrian's been her safety net since their parents passed away 10 years ago. I've never minded helping Luna, she's family. But this? This was different. Adrian had taken our entire emergency fund, without a word to me, to cover her surgery. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "We could have figured something out together." "It happened so fast," he said. "She was in pain, Kath. Gallbladder thing. The hospital wouldn't operate without payment up front. I didn't want to stress you out." Stress me out? I was beyond stressed. I was furious. Not just because he spent the money, but because he hid it. We're supposed to be a team. We have a 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, and bills piling up. My car's transmission was acting up, and we'd just gotten a notice that our rent was going up next month. That emergency fund was our lifeline, and now it was gone. The fallout wasn't just about the money. That was the main problem, sure, but it cracked open other issues we'd been ignoring. Adrian's habit of putting his sister first. My resentment over carrying the mental load of our finances. And then there was the added mess: Luna's recovery wasn't going smoothly, and she kept leaning on Adrian for help, rides to doctor's appointments, money for meds, even babysitting Max. Adrian was stretched thin, and I was left picking up the slack at home, all while scrambling to cover our bills alone. Let me back up and tell you about us, so you get the full picture. Adrian and I met in college. He was studying engineering but dropped out to work construction when his dad got sick. I was the nerdy math major who tutored him in calculus. We fell hard for each other, him with his easy laugh, me with my color-coded planners. We got married at 25, had Sophie 2 years later. Life wasn't fancy, but we were happy. We rented a small house in a quiet suburb, the kind with cracked sidewalks and neighbors who wave. Adrian's a great dad, always building forts with Sophie or sneaking her extra ice cream. But his loyalty to Luna has always been a sore spot. Luna's not a bad person. She's warm, funny, the kind of aunt who shows up with glittery crafts for Sophie. But she's impulsive, and her choices, like having no health insurance despite being a mom, put her in tough spots. Adrian feels responsible for her. Their parents' death hit him hard, and he promised his mom he'd look out for Luna. I get it. But I'm his wife. Sophie's his daughter. Shouldn't we come first? The weeks after I found out about the money were brutal. I was teaching full-time, grading papers late at night, and trying to keep Sophie's routine normal. Meanwhile, I was cutting corners to pay our bills, skipping my own doctor's appointment, buying cheaper groceries, even selling some old furniture online. Adrian was working overtime, but his paychecks barely covered the gap. Every time I brought up the emergency fund, he got defensive. "I'll pay it back," he'd say. "I'm picking up extra shifts." "It's not just the money, Adrian," I'd snap. "You made a huge decision without me. What if Sophie gets sick? What if the car breaks down?" He'd go quiet, his jaw tight, and I'd feel like the bad guy for pushing. But I wasn't wrong. Was I? Then came another problem, Luna's recovery. Her surgery had complications, and she needed follow-up care. She couldn't work her part-time retail job, so Adrian started covering her rent, too. He didn't tell me at first. I found out when I saw a $600 transfer to her account. I confronted him in our kitchen, Sophie asleep upstairs. "Are you serious?" I hissed, holding up my phone with the bank app open. "You're giving her more money? We can't afford this." "She's family, Kath," he said, his voice tired but firm. "What am I supposed to do, let her and Max get evicted? Tell her to apply for assistance. There are programs for this. Why is it always on us?" He shook his head, like I was being heartless. "You don't get it. She's my sister." That fight ended with me sleeping on the couch. I wasn't just angry at Adrian anymore, I was angry at Luna, too. She wasn't asking for help directly, she never did. She'd call Adrian crying, and he'd jump to fix it. I started wondering if she was taking advantage of him. Or was I being too harsh? The tension spilled over into other parts of our life. Sophie started acting out, throwing tantrums over small things like bedtime or homework. I think she sensed the stress between us. One night, she crawled into my lap and asked, "Are you and Daddy mad at each other?" I hugged her tight and said, "We're just figuring some grown-up stuff out, sweetie." But inside, I was terrified. What if this broke us? I couldn't keep living like this, resentful, exhausted, and broke. So I decided to take control. First, I sat Adrian down for a real talk, no yelling. It was a Sunday morning, Sophie at a friend's house. I made coffee, and we sat at our scratched-up dining table. "I'm not okay with how things are," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I love you, and I love Luna, but this can't keep happening. We need boundaries. And we need to rebuild that emergency fund." He nodded, but I could tell he was bracing for a fight. "I know I messed up," he said. "I should have told you about the surgery. But Luna's struggling, Kath. I can't just turn my back on her." "I'm not asking you to," I said. "But we're struggling, too. Sophie deserves stability. I deserve a partner who talks to me. We need to agree on how to handle this." It wasn't an easy conversation. Adrian admitted he felt guilty saying no to Luna, like he was betraying his parents' memory. I shared how abandoned I felt, like my voice didn't matter. We agreed on a plan, no more financial help for Luna without discussing it first. Adrian would talk to her about applying for Medicaid and other aid. And we'd both cut back to rebuild the emergency fund, him taking extra shifts, me picking up summer tutoring. The weight of it all started to creep into moments I didn't expect. One afternoon, while grading papers during my lunch break, I found myself staring at a student's algebra test, unable to focus. My coworker, Deborah, a science teacher who's been my work confidant for years, noticed. She's in her late 40s, warm but no nonsense, the kind of person who always has a thermos of coffee and a story about her teenage sons. "Kathleen, you look like you're carrying the world," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. I hesitated, then spilled a little, not the whole story, but enough about the money and Adrian's choice. She listened, nodding, and then said, "You're allowed to be mad, you know. But don't let it eat you up. You're stronger than this." Her words stuck with me, a reminder that I wasn't alone, even if it felt that way at home. I also started noticing how this situation was changing my view of Luna. I'd always seen her as Adrian's little sister, someone to protect. But now, I was questioning her choices more. Had she always been this dependent, or had I just ignored it? I remembered a time a few years back when Luna borrowed $500 from us for a sure-thing business idea that flopped. Adrian had brushed it off, saying she'd learn, but I'd been annoyed even then. It made me wonder if I'd been too passive, letting these patterns build until they exploded into this crisis. There was one night that hit me hard, a memory that kept replaying as I tried to make sense of everything. It was 2 years after Sophie was born, and we'd gone to Adrian's parents' house for Thanksgiving. Luna was there, barely 20, full of big plans to move to the city and make it as an artist. Their mom, sick but still sharp, had pulled Adrian aside and said, "Look after her, okay? She's got a good heart, but she needs you." I overheard it from the kitchen, stirring gravy, and even then, I felt a pang. I admired Adrian's loyalty, but I wondered where I'd fit in that promise. That memory haunted me now, making me question if I was fighting Adrian's love for his sister or the ghost of his mother's expectations. Sophie, too, was picking up on more than I realized. One evening, while we were coloring at the kitchen table, she looked up and asked, "Is Aunt Luna okay? Daddy's always on the phone with her." I froze, unsure how to answer. I didn't want to burden her, but I also didn't want to lie. "She's getting better, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile. "Sometimes grown-ups need extra help." Sophie nodded, but her crayon slowed, and I could tell she was thinking hard. It broke my heart, knowing she was caught in this mess, too. I started making more time for just us, reading extra bedtime stories, taking her to the park, to shield her from the tension. But the plan hit a snag. Luna called a week later, saying her landlord was threatening eviction. Adrian wanted to help, but I held firm. "We agreed," I reminded him. "She needs to figure this out." He looked torn, but he nodded. He called Luna and told her we couldn't pay her rent, but he'd help her find assistance programs. She cried, and I could hear it through the phone. Part of me felt awful, but part of me felt relieved. We were finally setting boundaries. Meanwhile, I tackled our finances. I found a budgeting app and tracked every dollar. I negotiated a payment plan for my car repairs and even got a small raise at work after talking to my principal. It wasn't much, but it helped. I also started selling lesson plans online, something I'd never had time for before. The extra income gave us breathing room. The bigger challenge was repairing things with Adrian. We were civil, but the trust was shaky. I suggested counseling, but he wasn't sold on it. "We can fix this ourselves," he said. So we tried. We started small, date nights at home, cooking together after Sophie went to bed. Slowly, we started talking again, not just about money but about us. Our dreams. Our fears. Luna, to her credit, stepped up. With Adrian's help, she got on Medicaid and found a better job at a daycare, one with benefits. She even apologized to me one day when she came to pick up Max. "I didn't realize how much I was putting on you guys," she said, her eyes teary. "I'm trying to do better." I believed her. But I also knew boundaries were non-negotiable now. 3 months later, things are better, not perfect, but better. Our emergency fund is at $3,000 and growing. Adrian and I are communicating, though we still have work to do. Sophie's back to her happy self, and Luna's more stable. I feel stronger, like I've reclaimed my voice in this marriage. Looking back, I realize this mess taught me something. Forgiveness isn't about pretending everything's okay, it's about choosing to move forward, even when it hurts. And resilience? That's not just surviving, it's fighting for what matters while still holding space for love. I'm curious what you think. Was I too hard on Adrian or Luna? Should I have pushed for counseling sooner? And what would you do if your partner made a choice that shook your trust like this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe there's something I'm missing, or a better way to keep this from happening again.
Thanks for watching. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and come back for more cool stuff.